Now, like most transfer windows, every bit of Arsenal news right now is on potential signings and potential outgoings. Despite I do think it is a bit of an overreaction, I still think we've got a very good team and I think we're in a good place. I definitely see the need of reinforcements in certain areas, but it may be hard to get someone in January. And there's been talk that we need a new centre midfielder, not often to get rid of Havertz, more to just change up the situations when we're playing in certain games. Now, I spoke about a lot of players in this position before for Arsenal. Zubimendi and Onana are big names in my list, and I really like them and really want them to come to Arsenal. But today I'm going to look at some of the players that have been linked to us recently that are a bit more opportunist that could probably more likely happen in January. With that being said, let's have a look in two experienced Premier League midfielders. Now, the issue with this is that both the players that I'm looking at are played for direct rivals of Arsenal. You've got Conor Gallagher at Chelsea and Calvin Phillips at Manchester City. Now, Manchester City haven't been reluctant to sell players to Arsenal before. We all know this. Zinchenko and Jesus came across. And Arteta still has some power in that dressing room in Man City, as a lot of people still respect him. Calvin Phillips never played under Arteta. Obviously, he joined recently from Leeds to go to Man City. Now, while there's injury concerns about him, he has actually not been that injured. He's just not been getting into the Manchester City team, despite Pep complaining they don't have another defensive midfielder and they'd rather not play him, which makes no sense. And when he was at Leeds in the Championship and the spell in the Premier League, he'd proven that he was a very good defensive midfielder. And some of the key bits about his game is that he's a very good passer. He's got very good passing range and can usually switch the ball very far. He also had amazing stamina, a bit like the Kante of old, where he could just run around the pitch all day and get the ball and pick it up everywhere, which is very important to have legs in that midfield. He also showed brilliant understanding of movement, position and spaces that made him effective at stopping opposition counter-attacks, particularly in central areas. He often recovers possession by intelligently predicting where loose balls will arrive and make an interception. He's also very good in helping his team build up. He's very good at moving so defenders come with him and giving space to other players in the box. Now, I do think if he went to Arsenal, there'd be a lot of potential there. There's obviously question marks if Manchester City would just let us have him, because there is a loan requirement there. I don't think Manchester City would necessarily ask to sell him this early, and they would probably still want a loan fee. He is also a similar version of Declan Rice. He's not exactly the same player, because I don't think he's good at some of the levels, but he is basically very similar, more of a 6 nowadays, because Rice has started developing into a bit of a hybrid 8. If Arsenal did get him as well, they would probably invert back into that 2 double pivot between the 2 players, rather than going for this inverted system where the inverted player is that pivot. Now, this could leave the attack quite isolated and make Odegaard have to do a lot in that midfield, but if Rice comes up and helps sometimes in that 8 hybrid, then I don't think it'll be too bad. I also think it'll help Arsenal get the ball up the pitch and also not be that worried on the counter against them. They have a lot more cover there with that defence. And while inverting is very much our strategy, I don't think it should necessarily be our given. I think that we should give opportunities to left backs that can overlap, such as Tierney. We could bring him back, and maybe not even him, maybe the defenders that we've already got, and give them that opportunity to go forward to help Martinelli and then sort of help the attack to maybe create more chances. And Rice and Calvin Phillips do have a connection there. They played very well together when they were in the Euros as that England defensive midfield, and with a good attacking midfielder, they were actually showing a lot of quality. So I do think with Odegaard as well, that midfield, it might not be the perfect, I wouldn't expect that to be our go-to every single game, but in certain games that could be a good way of going about it. The other player I wanted to talk about is Conor Gallagher, because I haven't seen many people talk about him for Arsenal, but I have seen a lot of talk on Twitter, and I know it's just rumours or whatever, but I do think this would be a good time to say that I think Conor Gallagher is a brilliant player and would be great for Arsenal. Now, his situation is weird anyway, because apparently he's been offered to Arsenal and Tottenham and numerous other big Premier League clubs, with Chelsea looking to cash out on him because they don't really see the future with it. Now, as this could just be down to paper talk, but it does seem like Chelsea genuinely don't really see a future with him, yet he has probably been their best player this year. They tried to get rid of him in the summer, but when they got a 40 million bid in for West Ham, they rejected it and instead wanted more, but then in the end he ended up staying because they didn't know what to do with him, and Poch, I think, liked him. And although Chelsea and Arsenal are big rivals, transfers from Chelsea to Arsenal happen quite often. I mean, Havertz happened in the summer, and it's happened a lot of times. And for the right price, the deal definitely could be done, considering the teams are in different circumstances right now to each other. There is also contract situations with him, because they don't seem to want to agree another deal with Conor Gallagher. This is one of the big reasons why they wanted to get rid of him in the summer. And with his contract ended in 18 months, if they realistically want to get some money for him, you try and sell him in this January window, or do some sort of deal where you can get some money in, because when someone has 1 year left on their contract, their price instantly decreases. And although they have got a lot of money for Mason Mount, and after a poor season, only a 1 year deal for Man United, I don't think that's going to happen with all their players. So I think if they want to do a deal, they could see something like a loan with maybe a guaranteed buy option in that summer for around 35 to 40 mil, which may be acceptable. Now, Conor Gallagher gets a lot of hate, and I don't really understand it. He got a lot of picks for England where I don't think he's necessarily deserved, but he deserves to be in there right now, and he's been brilliant this season. At Crystal Palace, he played at more of a 10 and was very much more attacker for them and had very good output. At Chelsea, he's definitely not. He's more of an 8 and he's much more deeper. Overall, he showed he's a very composed player and his off-the-ball work is amazing. He's very good at sniffing out danger and getting to the ball. Sometimes his on-the-ball work, his passes aren't brilliant, but often he's in the right position. He's also proved, like Calvin Phillips, he's a massive engine in that team. He does so much work in the middle for Chelsea this season. He's making around 1.7 interceptions per game and 3 tackles per game, which is in one of the highest of Chelsea in both areas. He's also very similar to someone like Curtis Jones, who I spoke about before. He wins the ball in possession very high up the field, and this season he's actually won it 27 times, which is more than any other player in the top 5 leagues of Europe. He's also very good at linking up the midfield to the attack, which is something that Arsenal have actually been struggling with a lot, trying to get the ball into that progressive area and actually get these strikers in a ball where they want near the goal. He's very good at taking his time and very composed on the ball, and is very good at decision making, getting better and better every week. He also creates a stupid amount of chances for Chelsea this season. He's created so much. He's not great on the ball, like, he doesn't look easy on the eye, but he is very effective. And he's also homegrown, which definitely both these players are, so that gives them a valid reason as well to sign him. And look, Arsenal fans are going to be pessimistic and be like, well, he's Chelsea reject or whatever and he's not very good, but it just makes no sense. If you're actually watching him, he's a very good player and there are so many good players out there. You just can't get the superstar signs all the time, which I think people have got too accustomed with in the last few years. Growing up, I was watching Arsenal sign the absolute worst players in the world, and some of them end up being good. This is not a club that signs world-class players. They make players world-class. And even for financial reasons and just footballing reasons, you can't just go out there and spend all this money on all these players. It takes time to build a team and it takes time to get the targets that you want, but sometimes you're gonna have to go out there and get different players. I'm not saying Conor Gallagher or Calvin Phillips is the perfect option for us, but in January, we're not going to be able to get the class players that we want, the world-class stars, so we have to simply deal with this. We also need players that stitch it all up and make it more joined together. We don't necessarily need creativity, we just need to change the system up to make players get the ball more. We've all seen how good Odegaard can be at creating, so I don't think we need to go out there and buy Florian Wirtz like people think. You think about how much money that's going to cost, there's way more pressing issues in the team. Honestly, if Arsenal get anyone in this January window, I think the fans should be grateful, and they won't be because everyone wants the next best thing. We haven't got Osimhen, everyone will complain, but it's just not really what it's about. We haven't got our main targets a lot of times, and we got our secondary targets, and they've ended up being better for us. I don't think necessarily accepting us getting the worst players than people think is a bad idea, but people have these ideas of these players because they watch Twitter clips and don't actually watch them play consistently. And players sometimes fit into different systems and even bigger clubs better than they did at other clubs. For example, someone like Van Dijk, who went from Southampton to Liverpool, I think he was way better at Liverpool than he was at Southampton. Overall, I'm sorry for this rant about Arsenal's transfer targets, and realise that whoever they get, it will probably be a decent deal. The club is not worse off of thinking because they're thinking about the long-term future and trying to get in some players that make sense rather than your 200 mil players that people see Twitter compilations on and think they're the best in the world. I do think these two centre mids that I've said are brilliant options for that position to help us play in different ways, at least right now. Sorry for the rant, guys, but thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, please go and watch my video about where I talk about the strikers that we could potentially get in January as well. And if you like my content, please subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.